And I got another project that came in the mail today too. I scored this crank on eBay. It needs a little cleanup, but this is for a walk behind 14 horse or 432, whatever you want to say. But this one's going to go to Brian too. This one needs a grinding. It has a blown rod remnants on there, a bunch of aluminum. And this one is probably going to have to go to 20 under as well. So I'm going to clean up some of this rust a little bit and ship this one off to Brian to get done as well. So stay tuned for more. All right, see ya. Well, back to the new 14 horse Kohler crank, and I'm going to take some of this muriatic acid and pour it on this aluminum here and see if we can get it cleaned up a little bit. And then my plan here is to get the aluminum cleaned up and then to drop it in an electrolysis tank and see what we can do there. And it has got a little bit of rust on it, and you know, I'm going to send it out to get ground down, but I wanted to try to clean off some of those bearing surfaces a little bit before I send it out and see if we can electrolysis this turd. And it happens to be in the 60s out right now for February, which is unheard of for Connecticut. Usually my water would freeze outside this time of year, so I'm going to see if I can get it off. There's just this one little glob over here. It's actually pretty thick, so it may behoove me to use a little file or something to get it a little more aggressively. And then when it gets close to being down to the bottom, I'll use the acid, but we'll give it a shot. I'm going to pour a little acid on there. Let's see what happens. You gotta let it bubble for a minute. Oh yeah, it's going right down the water and it's smoking. This is good stuff. Yeah, so you just let it sit on there and it'll bubble up. I don't know if I can get close enough to see the bubbles, but it starts bubbling on the aluminum. And it cleans it pretty good. So I'm going to let it sit here for a few minutes and come back, and you got to do this multiple times, but eventually it works. Yeah, it's working, guys. It's working pretty good. Those freaking fumes reek though. Oh man. Let's see if I can pour another little douse on there and show you. Eat me. Yeah, it works, huh? Isn't that cool how that works? Whew. Smoke coming out of it and everything, and bubbling, and it's eating it. It takes a little bit. You gotta have a little patience, but it works. It works. Man, this thing must have really blown up. There's some serious carnage on that rod. Whew. That's crazy, huh? Alright. Well, after screwing around for about a half hour with the muriatic acid, and maybe I took a little file to some of the aluminum and scrubbing it with this brush, I got it pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. Now, I know that it has to get ground, and I'm just going to take out my micrometer and measure it anyways before I put it in my electrolysis to try to clean off some of this rust. But let's see what happens. I've gotten out the real micrometer here and the cheapo one, just for comparison purposes. The cheapo one measures like 485, which would mean I got to go to 20 under, which is just what I expected. And if I take out my real Starret micrometer, we can go on the top here and see that we end up being about, let's see, 483, somewhere in there, 483, you know, in that zone. So actually, let's see, 15 plus 13. Yeah, 483, 484. And when I go the other direction, I'm right in the same vicinity. Let's see, we're at 14 over here again, so we're at 84. So basically, this thing has to go to 20 under. There's only about 4 thousandths that has to come off of it, and then we'll have a 20 under crank. And I noticed that this gear here is really worn a lot, where it's going to mesh with the camshaft. And if I look at the teeth on this end, they look pretty decent, but the top looks like there's a lot of wear in there. But hey, whatever, it is what it is. So anyways, I'm going to try to put this in a little electrolysis and get some of this rust off it before I ship it to Brian Miller. All right, thanks for watching. All right, I got my electrolysis hooked up here, and I can already see it starting to bubble. You see those bubbles already? It's only been in here for a few seconds. I already see some rust bubbling up, so that's a good sign. And my pail doesn't have enough water in it to get the whole crank, so I'm going to have to flip it over at some point and put the other end up and this end down. But it is starting to work already. The water's a little cloudy because it just got stirred up with some rust, I think, that fell off the rod. But what are we pulling down here? Barely any power. Only about an amp on the meter. So yeah, so I ground down the metal up there to get some fresh meat for the clips to go on. But it's pulling about an amp, so it's really not too much, but it's doing something. Yeah, anyways, we'll check it out in the morning, and we'll see what happens. Well, it's the next morning here. It's probably about 10 hours later, and you can see all that bubbling in there, making some electrolysis soup in my crankshaft here, which is just what I wanted to see. It's supposed to rain this evening, so I think I'm going to have to wrap this up early afternoon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out right now and flip it 180 degrees and put it back in so we can get the other side exposed to the anode a little bit. So be right back. Alright, so let's see what we got here in the crankshaft soup. Nice. I love electrolysis. It is the bomb. Now, just for comparative sake here, yeah, it's gonna be nice. I'll flip it 90 degrees like so. I gotta make sure it doesn't touch the anode over there. That's the hard part because of the way it's balanced here. Alright, that should be good. And yeah, you can see all the rust that's come up here. Pretty awesome, huh? So I'll plug my charger back in, and we'll come back this afternoon and see what we got. Alright, so I took the crank out of the electrolysis here because it started to thunder out and rain really hard. And I'm just going to scrub it down with this wire brush and rinse it off, and we'll see what we got. Guys, I'm pretty happy with this. The left side here, which would be the flywheel side, came out really awesome. Check that out. And the dippers here, if you will, the balance on the bottom here looks really nice. All the way on the right end, that part wasn't in the water, so there's a little bit of rust on there still, and I don't care because that's going to go under the input gear. Like, it'll be in this area there where the gear is, So I'm cool with that. But yeah, I am very, very happy with this electrolysis. And it was only in there for like not even 24 hours. And yeah, it came out great. So I highly recommend this to everybody.